stage Oihana Elizalde, the General Manager of Mirum at Natural Fiber Welding. Oihana leads all aspects of NFW's breakthrough Mirum business line. She joined NFW in 2019, bringing 16 years of experience working in multiple countries and across a range of roles at global giant BASF. She has deep expertise in innovation, technology, sustainability, and proven experience helping customers turn ideas into commercial success. And she will be joined by some of her team in a pre-recorded video. Hi, Oihana. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Great to be here, and congrats on this amazing conference. We're glad to participate. Yeah, as Nicole mentioned, we have a pre-recorded video with some of our thoughts on designing with intention. So they are around designing amazing new materials in a radically different way. We only use natural raw materials as inputs. We keep plastics out completely from beginning to end. So we hope you're going to enjoy this great conversation. We'll play the video for you, and I'll join at the end to help with any questions you might have. So enjoy.
The road to a new materials paradigm can't be paved with plastic. Next-gen materials must set the gold standard for sustainability. In this conversation, Oihana Elizalde, General Manager of the Mirum Business Unit at Natural Fiber Welding, Stephen Taylor, NFW's Product Circularity Engineer, and Sean Sutherland from A Plastic Planet will discuss the future of all natural materials as a design solution to the world's plastic dependence. This conversation will seek to explore how both industry and government are necessary to drive systematic change, covering NFW's material breakthroughs and Sean's work on the UN Environment Assembly's Plastic Treaty. Before we get started, Oihana, can you tell us more about Mirum? What are some of the key elements of the material, and how is NFW different?
Yeah, thanks for the intro, and love to tell you more about Mirum. We like to position Mirum as a categorically new plant-based material that redefines what you can do on the soft goods space. So of course we can have a Mirum that looks and feels like leather, but we can have very different aesthetics for Mirum. So it goes beyond a leather alternative. It works great across accessories and footwear, and we'll talk more about what we found there, but expands into other applications like upholstery and automotive. So very massive impact across very, very large markets. So it can look like leather, it can look like something very different. This is all Mirum. So you can start imagining how you can design in very, very different ways with Mirum. What all these things have in common is that they are all natural. There is zero plastics, no PU binders, nothing synthetic on it. There's no animal-based ingredients that we use. As you can see, aesthetically, very, very versatile and very customizable. And what's pretty amazing is the low impact in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of overall impact on the planet that the material has, and the potential to really redefine through circularity, through the opportunity to recycle Mirum into new Mirum, but also, as we will talk through today, the opportunity to put it back on Earth. So we are putting back plant-based carbon and minerals back on Earth as nutrients. So pretty amazing material that we are very, very excited about.
Sounds like you and the team over at NFW have been really busy and up to some great things. You just told us what Mirum is, but can you bring us all up to speed on how it might be experienced in the marketplace?
Yeah, so we've been having a pretty busy time. So I would say we have about 15 brands up to now that have launched, mainly on accessories and footwear. These are very different, very, very broad type of brands. Brands like Ralph Lauren, like MCQ from Kering, like Belroy, Pangaya, but also very, very small, kind of very agile brands. So we found some amazing things. So as a consumer, you can experiment Mirum in shoes. This is a camper shoe. Different types of shoes. This is a launch we did with H&M, but also very interesting options in things like accessories. This is a mother bag, small leather goods. So I think as a consumer, you're pretty amazed at you touch the material and there is no synthetics and it's all based on plants and other natural ingredients. I would say we have also amazing partners that have invested, like Ralph Lauren, Allbirds, B&W iVenture. So I think that gives you a bit of an idea of, I guess, the versatility that the material has, because very different brands are loving it and are using it for very, very, very different applications. I think what people love is the fact that they can easily manufacture finished goods with Mirum. They can do it in a way that doesn't compromise performance. But on top of that, you overlay the storytelling opportunity in terms of it's all natural, it has no plastics, it has very low impact. So we are seeing brands and their consumers fully embracing kind of our view of materials and the first finished goods made with Mirum.
That's wonderful. The lack of any plastic is really one of the key differentiators for Mirum, and so many people don't understand how ubiquitous plastic has become in our world today. I want to bring Sian into this conversation. Sian, you've got a fantastic title. You're the Chief Change Maker at A Plastic Planet. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're focused on and what you're seeing in the next gen material space?
Thanks so much, Amber, and really a pleasure to be with you all. So yes, at A Plastic Planet, we are entrepreneurs. So we have a very different approach to the whole world of plastic activism. We are very pro-business and pro-solution. As you can imagine, as an entrepreneur, I believe business is the tool of change. So we work with industry, we work with governments, and we have this very simple goal, which is to ignite and inspire the world to turn off the plastic tap. What I've always found extraordinary is how somehow the climate crisis and the plastic crisis have become decoupled, thanks to the extraordinary powerful lobbying from the fossil fuel industry, when actually the plastics industry as a country is the 5th biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. And the thing that I also find so fascinating, it is the one material that the invention of which allowed us to break that model that we had for centuries of take, make, reuse, repair, refill, into a new system where we take, make, use once and throw it into the trash can, imagining some magical recycling fairies are going to deal with it. So yes, in a very short space of time, we have created an entirely plastic world. It's in our oceans, it's in our air. There's up to 23 times as much plastic in our soil as there is even in our oceans. We're very emotionally connected to our oceans, but think about the soil. This is the building blocks of everything that we put in our bodies. So we need to take care of our soil. It's in our food systems already. And now we know that it is in our own bodies. And there is this invisibility to plastic that really amazes me, that we need to be aware of, especially in the world of textiles, because so few people actually know that almost 70% of our textiles are made from fossil fuel plastic, which is just leaching microfibers into our oceans. And of course, the air that we breathe. We are literally breathing in our clothes now. So we all have this plastic guilt. It isn't like carbon. I don't know, carbon, I can't see it, I can't feel it, I can't touch it, but plastic? There are no plastic deniers out there. And I think there's few companies in the entire world that don't have some kind of plastic pledge or promise. But words don't equal action. And this is where we need to really move, because we are on track right now to treble plastic production by 2040. Clearly, talking about the problem isn't going to fix it, though, so we have to do more, and we need this radical systems change and a completely new approach to materials. In our work at A Plastic Planet, we work a lot with different industries. We do see a lot of pretender materials, I'm not going to lie. And these are materials that are just a little bit less bad. We don't have time anymore for just a little bit less bad. We need materials that are entirely plastic free, that wean us off the petrochemical industry, which, trust me, textiles, plastic is plan B for the fossil fuel industry. We need materials that aren't just plastic free, but also toxin free, so that they can go back to nature without harm. And for us at A Plastic Planet, that's why natural fiber welding is so exciting, because it has reinvented the world of materials in a way that we've never seen before. And we talk to a lot of people globally. And they haven't just reinvented the world of materials, but somehow reinvented the very language of materials by talking about nutrients. The other bit I love is listen to that list of brands just read out there. This this evolution, this revolution really in textiles, it isn't about denial. It isn't about knitted armpits and hairy sandals. This is aspirational. For me, this is an opportunity to put beauty back into the fashion industry. I love clothes, I love fashion, but we cannot continue to have 70% of our wardrobes just plastic bags hanging there. We need to get back to what fashion was always about. It was about craft. It was about enhancement. It was about this beautiful trade and embellishment. We need to get back to those origins. And I feel this new connection with the very materials that we're making, having this new approach, this new language, knowing that they are fully circular. Because, of course, plastic is the most linear material you could ever have, unsustainable from the get-go to the fact it never has an end of life. But when you're taking things from nature, you're not chemically modifying them so that they can go back to nature. That, for us, is radical. And we just want everybody to move into this new world and start thinking about this new language of nutrients.
That's amazing, Sean. I want to quickly bring Stephen in. You've authored a paper here, and it's been first released at this conference. And it seems like NFW has a very different take on ideas around sustainability and circularity. Can you let me know what you think, or let everyone know what you think about what's wrong with industry definitions today?
Yeah, sure. And thanks. I'm really glad to be here, and I love hearing Oihana and Sean talk. My background, my training is in soil science, so I'm really glad to hear Sean bring up soil. I love that. But because of that background, I'm used to thinking about the way that nature thinks about cycling nutrients. And a lot of the industry definitions of circularity, this terminology has been around for a while, but the industry definitions of circularity kind of take this linear model and add a few loops to it and call that circular, and then kind of zoom in, but forget that even after those loops, there's still a waste disposal issue, and we're still releasing toxins into the environment and things that nature doesn't know how to cycle through. And so at NFW, we want to look to nature as kind of the gold standard for circularity. And nature doesn't really look at waste as a bad thing. Nature looks at waste as food, and we use food to create new things. So at NFW, we're trying to do that same thing. And it starts at the beginning. It starts with our approach to what materials we're willing to use to create these durable, beautiful items like Oihana was showing off. And if we can really stick to, we want to use plant material, we want to use natural materials that can perform and be durable and beautiful. Then at the end of their life, and we can recycle them, we can reuse them and form them into new things. But at the end of their life, they can return to nature as food, not poison and not toxic to the environment. So that's kind of the approach that we take to circularity. We want to fit that bill. We want to be able to recycle and reuse and keep these materials at their highest value and utility for as long as possible. But we recognize that there is going to be some waste and some leakage. But if we can view that waste as food to the environment and nutrients, then it's a fundamental paradigm shift, and it starts with the materials that we are willing to use in our material.
Thank you, Stephen. Sean, in the past, you've said that plastic is not a waste problem, it's a production problem. It's a design problem. How does this reframing shift how we should think about finding solutions to the world's plastic dependence?
Yes, so I often get asked, particularly by individuals, what can I do? What can I do at home? And I'm always saying, it isn't about you. This is not your problem. It's an industry problem. People buy what they're sold. Industry needs to sell you something different, and governments need to mandate that you sell it very quickly. But through all the conversations that we've had where people are struggling to find answered, we found that there is one massive community, which is the world of the creative. There are 160 million creatives globally. And we work a lot with the creative agencies when they're being briefed by their brands. And I sit in on some of those meetings, and it just saddens me to see these extraordinarily creative individuals who are the ones that will create the vision of the future that we all need to accelerate towards. They are not included in the conversation. They are disempowered. They don't have the knowledge that Stephen has. And so we need to empower them and give them confidence so they can push back against that inevitable brief that says, just use a recycled polymer and we'll get a little green halo here. So what we need to do is connect them, fill this knowledge gap, so we can connect the 160 million global creatives with the plastic-free materials makers, the system changers, the innovators. So we are building the first platform, which will be hosted on plasticfree.com, launching it later this year. Biggest thing that we've done in 6 years at A Plastic Planet, for sure. Because if you want to make change happen, then empower the creatives, because every single thing on our planet is designed. Even if it's a bad design, at some moment it's gone through a creative process. And if we can get people to rethink from the very beginning, just as NFW, as Stephen has so eloquently explained, rethinking materials from the very beginning, if we can then empower the design audience to rethink how they use those materials, give them access to that knowledge, we can change everything. So our vision of let's ignite and inspire the world to turn off the plastic tap means let's work with the designers and we are literally turning it off at the source and not talking about waste. As Stephen says, nature doesn't exist, nature doesn't have waste. And yet humans, the only species on the planet, we pump out 6 billion tons of waste every single year. What gives us the right to do this? We have to rethink and we have to empower the creatives to do that.
Oihana, you certainly spend a lot of time empowering creatives, and you've had a front row seat to brand partners as they seek to adopt next-gen materials. We know that the path toward true circularity is not easy, and it's a lot more complicated, just like Sean and Stephen said. What have you found is the most pressing issue for some of the brands that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's been really interesting to have these conversations with the brands we work with. As you saw, they're very different. So I would say typically the way this starts is around maybe things that everybody's more familiar with, and there are certain methods that you can use to quantify, like greenhouse emissions, carbon impact, carbon footprint, things like that. And so very often we start there. And okay, we are very proud of our carbon number. It is much lower, order of magnitude lower than other materials. But then as brands really understand how we have a totally different way of putting materials together, is radically different, then their mind really opens up, and we have much deeper conversations in terms of like what issues we can tackle together. And they are very much linked to what Sean was saying on really working with designers and creatives in different ways. Because if they get to embrace natural materials in the way they design finished goods, then you can really start tackling some pretty massive things like zero waste through the manufacturing process, recycling all the scraps that we create. What do we do post-consumer at the end of life, either by making all natural materials or finished goods, or by designing them in a way that they can be easily disassembled and then taken back either to nature or to us to recycle. And then I would say the other very powerful issue that we really discuss is if you really start thinking about radical transparency on where ingredients are coming from, who is growing them, who is harvesting them, what's their conditions. So really linking ingredients that we use every day to communities. People want to understand where they are coming from. How can I impact somebody somewhere in the planet having a better choice or a better opportunity in life? So the idea of social justice and really being able to now take all these growers and farmers and integrate them into these very massive supply chains around fashion industry, automotive industry, upholstery industry, I think is very powerful. And these are really top of mind for many brand partners, but I would say for many of us as consumers. So this whole idea of bringing a whole other intention, the way we design a finished good, it's something that really we see very, very top of mind for many brands, and is going to change the way we work with them and the way we integrate our materials into consumer goods.
That's fantastic. And Stephen, I would love to hear any supplemental thoughts that you have about designing with intention or the carbon number, as Oihana mentioned.
Yeah, I think Oihana really hit it on the head. I think there are so many ways that our materials are just fundamentally different in our approach to circularity. And I guess I would just say that we're looking for, I'm talking about nature as the gold standard. We're trying to build an ecosystem of brand partners where we can really be a zero waste company from the initial design, but at your factory waste, we want those things back, because to us, that's material that we can reuse. And I think this is something that really sets us apart, Mirum apart especially, is that the technology is such that not only is the production scalable, but the recyclability is scalable. We can easily mechanochemically recycle Mirum. If we can get it back from you, we can turn it into something new. And that sets us apart from the plastics industry, because as we've seen, not only was plastic, it was always been theoretically recyclable, but the economics and the scalability has never been there. But what we're saying is that we can do it. And so, but what we need is an ecosystem of brand partners that can send us that stuff back, so that we can really start from the beginning and approach this in a zero waste ecosystem. That's what we're trying to do.
You mentioned a zero waste ecosystem and working with brand partners, but Oihana, do you think that some of these standards might be a little too high for the industry?
I don't think so. I mean, it's certainly not an easy road, but I think that's why all of us are here and why all of us are having this conversation today. So I think we have an amazing team, and these, high standards is what really brought all these people here to Peoria, Illinois, in the U.S., and to natural fiber welding, and how many brands really gravitate to work with us on our materials. What I find is, for sure, brands, but all of us as consumers, I think, are more educated than we ever were in the past. And so we keep wanting to understand more, we keep wanting to do better. And so they keep raising the bar to a higher standard, which is a great thing in my opinion. I think once you realize that using natural ingredients, you actually can have these very, very high performing, these very amazing materials. It's now very hard, like, at least for me mentally, to, set a lower bar, take a shortcut, like make it easier on us so we can get something to market by just adding a little bit of plastic in there. It's just like, once you see what's possible, you cannot unsee it and go back and take a shortcut and kind of make it easier. The moment you kind of do that and would introduce even a little bit of synthetic material, you break the magic of, the circularity. You break the magic on the type of materials you want to put out there, because you then don't enable, the putting it back in a safe way. And so it's a high bar, yes, but I think this is what really sets us aside. I think Sean was saying it earlier. It's not about less impact or making it less bad. It's really about moving the bar to a whole other level, but really genuinely putting something that can have a massive impact, right, on the planet, but on every living in the planet, people, animals. If we do this the right way, all the way from how we grow the ingredients, all the way to take regenerative ingredients that are amazing carbon sinks, then you move the discussion from it's less bad, it has less impact, to actually reverting things and really thinking about healing versus less damage. And so, yes, it's hard, but it's extremely motivating. And I think that's what's really driving the team here to do very amazing things.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to consider. Sean, I want to pivot back to you. You were very involved in the recently legally binding UNAE resolution to end plastic pollution by 2024. Can you give us your perspective on the role of governments and industry in driving toward truly sustainable long-term solutions?
Yes, we talk a lot to big business. because we believe, that if they are going to be, they're the ones with the power right now. Governments are too slow, too unwieldy, too enthralled to the fossil fuel industry. And this is not about, the general public. This is about industry. But when you talk to industry, it is incredibly difficult for them to change. They have spent 30 years now becoming absolutely addicted to this incredible but toxic and indestructible material. So to ask them to just wean themselves off when their entire supply chains, everything that they make, the economic model of what they do, everything is framed around fossil fuel plastic, is incredibly difficult and highly disruptive and economically disruptive as well. So we have to make it a have to, not a nice to, because then it helps industry. It creates that level playing field. So governments have a huge role here to do better. They need the science is there, the solutions are there now. What are we waiting for? And then the final nail in the plastic coffin is going to be the UN Plastic Treaty. And as you mentioned, in February this year, very good news at UNEA 5.2, it was agreed with 167 countries saying, yes, we want a global plastic treaty. But not only that, we want it to be legally binding. This is extraordinary. The fossil fuel industry would not like it to be legally binding. We want it not to just talk about marine litter. Another very important fact. Everybody wants to talk about marine litter, like this is something that's just been dropped off the side of a boat accidentally, instead of the billions of tons of plastic that is infecting our planet now at every single level. It's going to be the whole life cycle of plastic, not just that little bit of litter that we talk about in the end. And then the final point that is very exciting to me is it will also talk about human health and the impact on human health. And we all know we are a very selfish species. And if there's one thing we care about, it's our own health. And as soon as you find out the truth about the impact, particularly on pregnancy, on our children, on newborns, the impact of the toxins within plastic, this is going to be a massive leap of change, because where there is a health risk, there is a corporate risk. So I think the UN treaty is going to really help governments, because suddenly they don't feel isolated. There's a unity. We're all in this together. I think the industries beneath will be very grateful to have guidance, because it's voluntary, as we know, just doesn't work. If all the global treaties in the world were successful, we'd see a 7% reduction in plastic pollution. And that's of a trebling that we're forecast. So voluntary is never going to work. We have to have new laws. We love to live in a libertarian society, but laws are the only way that we're really going to make some big progress. And now we're creating a vacuum. This is where innovation will happen. As soon as things look like they're going to be banned, you suddenly see the green shoots of innovation. And that's where organizations like NFW, this is what we need to see. We need to propagate. We need 1 million NFWs out there on the planet. There is a very, very big pie for everyone. And all these different levers of change, I think, are really going to impact that.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. That was very inspiring. And yes, we do need 1 million more NFWs, and we are very happy to blaze the trail. I want to thank you all for such an inspiring conversation. Sean, if you could quickly please let everyone know where they can learn more about you and your initiatives.
Yes, you can always follow us at A Plastic Planet. Don't forget the A. Later this year, we'll be launching Plastic Freedom. Visit that. Do sign up if you want to know more about it, because that's going to give you a huge amount of answers. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always talking about this stuff on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to follow me on that, then we can have a direct exchange. Thank you.
And for everyone else, you can follow NFW online on all of our social media. You can just go to naturalfiberwelding.com. If you want some more information about Mirum specifically, please visit madewithmirum.com. And please stick around for a quick live Q&A. And don't forget to visit our virtual booth. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, NFW team. And I'm so sorry to have to say that we actually don't have time for the Q&A, but if you look in the chat, Kent did put in the link for the NFW booth. And then if you go into the expo on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll also see the NFW booth in there. And the NFW team is there ready to answer all of your questions. So thank you so much to everyone. Really appreciate it. So now we're going to have to take the quick 30-second break to stop this video and start the next. And I'll see you shortly.